What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sales Stories in Real Life, episode 7. I'm your host, Alex Bruschi, and today we have a very special guest. He is the founder at salesorg.io. You have definitely seen his videos on LinkedIn and TikTok. Welcome to the great Troy Barter. Welcome to the show. I hear you had a really interesting experience with a mortgage broker, Troy. What happened there?
Yeah, man. So beforehand, to kind of preface, I was thinking about before I got this call years ago, like, man, I'm a cold caller. I've never bought from a cold call. Like, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite there. And I was looking at refinancing. This is right when the pandemic started. And we were kind of knee deep in refinancing our home because the rates were so low at the time. And the so we had already basically signed of like, all right, cool, we're going to do this deal. They're working on like the final touches to the rate and everything like that. This is my existing mortgage broker just from my realtor. And then I got cold called by a mortgage broker. And he was just like, hey man, we're just calling because rates are great right now. I'd love to give you an idea. And I was like, man, I'm actually already in the middle of it. He was like, well, maybe I can do better. Let's take a look. And I was like, oh man, this is perfect example of where, all right, cool. Let's give you a shot and see. And sure enough, not only could he beat the rate, but he did it way faster than the other company. Like, you could obviously tell this guy was a hustler. Like, he was down to grind and make it happen for us quickly and efficiently, which is what we wanted. So I was like, all right, cool, let's go. And I signed up with them, and I refinanced through them. Straight cold call. I didn't inquire or anything like that, but I already had interest. I was effectively an inbound that they stole, that may have never come to pass, but I might as well have been because I was so interested already. I already was going to buy. It was a matter of who, not when or what, really. And from there, my wife got pregnant with our fourth child. I realized, all right, maybe we need a little bit of a bigger house than what we are already in. I had just refinanced 2 to 3 months beforehand with that guy that cold called me. And we went to buy another house that was probably twice the cost of the house that we had just refinanced. And who do you think I went through? I went through the guy that I already knew was down to put the work in, was down to find the right rates. And sure enough, I was right to do that. Long story short, a few years later, I've done financing through them, I think 3 times now, well over $1 million in financing with this company. And he cold called me. Anytime somebody asks for a broker, that's the name that I give. I don't get anything in return. It's just I respect the hustle, respect that the dude was cold calling and everything. Alex, the way that I relate it is, people say that cold calling is dead. It'll never die. You just have to be fishing in the right pond. If you reach out to someone that already more than likely would have interest in what you're offering, you're going to be able to convert. It's I think there's a negative connotation of spray and pray. Let me tell you right now, you put me in the right pond, I want to put dynamite in it to get all the fish out. I'm down to spray and pray. Spray and pray works if you're spraying in the right direction, all right? There's firing squads for centuries because the shit works. You can spray without your eyes closed and it'll be good enough if you throw enough bullets over in that direction, man. You know, and that's kind of the approach that I've looked at, is that people want to say that cold calling is dead. Number one, it'll never die if you're targeting the right personas, the right people, and you have a reasonable assumption that they need what you're offering, or even that they really want what you're offering. And if you do enough research, not on a particular one-of-one prospect, but on the industry as a whole, on the wins that your company is already creating and closing, so you move in the right direction. And that target is a moving target. That's why I always say, look at the existing deals that you're closing, because what you're going to find are deals that are not your traditional ICP. If you're a big enough company, or if you're growing fast enough, you're always going to find some stuff and be like, man, a roofer bought this. I don't even know that roofers would be interested in this. Let me talk to that AE that closed it, if you're an SDR, or an AE and you're prospecting, and try to get an idea of like, oh, wait a minute, this might be a lane. They were really excited. It was a great fit, and they're underserved. We're not reaching out to them right now. Our means our competitors probably aren't either. Oh shit, let's go after them. Let's give it a shot. Can't tell you how many outbound orgs I have built off of that fracking premise of looking for wins and going after it. And the second thing is, they say that you hear this with a lot of the email guys. which I like email too, but they say cold calling is inefficient. So even like, it's almost like, global warming versus climate change. They change the wording. All right, it's not dead, it's inefficient now. All right, cool. So it works. Now you're admitting that it works, but you want to say that your way is more efficient. Well, there's a million tools that you can use that will make you more efficient at your cold calling. There's ways for you to enrich the leads in a more automated way, in a faster way. There's ways for you to automate cadences and set your reminders in a way where you're more efficient with the way that you're doing things. You could just ask yourself, how could I be more efficient in my day? Number one answer is, if you're doing anything during calling hours that is like kind of busy work, you're doing your research at that time, you're compiling case studies at that time, anything but talking to clients during hours where you could talk to clients, you're being inefficient, not your cold calling. You should be calling during those times to maximize the amount of efficiency. You can send an email at any time. You can send an email, you can automate the email to send out at the time that you want at any time at this point. So why aren't you calling during the hours where you should be calling? And then the excuse might be, well, there's only so many hours in the day. I'm not going to work extra and not get paid for it. All right, cool. Then be a failure forever. Because there's no one, I don't know one that's a real winner that I'd want to rock with that isn't like, you know what, I'm going to do it however it takes. I'm going to figure out a way to do this. All that hustle culture shit goes by the wayside when you start to run your own business, I've learned. There's no one there to protect you. There's no one there to say, man, Troy's working too many hours. He might get burnt out. You know why? Because my competitors are not other HR fostered people. They're other founders, and they could care less. They're hoping that you subscribe to that anti-hustle stuff so they can eat your lunch. So that's kind of the mindset that I have, and I think it's the mindset that people should at least have partially, even if you're not employing it at the place that you're at. You should be ready to grind at any given moment, because I think that is something that is, it's kind of sad how that's been pushed away. It's fine to grind. It's fine to hustle. It's even fine to hustle towards something that isn't what you want necessarily, or something that you're excited about, if it leads you to the bag that leads you to what you want. Money doesn't buy happiness, it buys time and options. And the best way of being able to create time and options is by getting that money. And then if you have them, you can do whatever you want. I did well enough in tech sales in 9 years where I could say, all right, cool, I don't want to work for anyone anymore. I'd rather work twice or 3 times as hard, but never have anybody that could tell me we're changing course. It's my course. I'm the one that's handling this. And I know I'm long-winded, which a lot of times can be helpful on a podcast because I really fill it up. But that's the tale, man. And that's the first cold call that I bought from. And the reality is, the only reason that was the first one I bought is because it was the most relevant call. It was the one that was, forgive me, it was the one that was most relevant to my needs and what I wanted to buy at the time. And I think everybody is willing to buy from a cold call if it's relevant enough and your delivery is on point. You sound like you belong on the phone with them. You sound positive. You sound assumptive. You sound like someone that they'd want to talk to for 30 seconds. And above all else, you don't sound like a salesperson. You sound like you. You don't try to be the most polished person. You try to be the best version of you that someone would want to talk to for 30 seconds, and that might trust in terms of your tone. So you're not going to be over the top, because people don't tend to trust that. It's usually a reason why people are over the top. And that's that, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we hear all the time. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So that's one that will stand the test of time forever. Let's break that down, and let's go all the way back to the beginning, because you were on the 1 yard line, right? I mean, you were moments away, right, from closing with somebody else. You get a phone call and you're getting a cold call from a mortgage broker. I'm sure your immediate thought is just, hey, let me get this guy off the phone, right? I'm about to do it. It took all this time to get the rates and blah, blah, blah. So how did the mortgage broker, right, get you to trust, right, that they actually had your best interest in mind, that they were actually going to go out and shop these rates, right? Why wasn't it just a hang up?
I think I offered it up a bit more than I typically would, because it was fresh in my mind that I hadn't bought from a cold call. But I can tell you what I do, and this would have worked. So they called into me. I already had a provider, and I had already bought from that provider previously. They had financed my house originally. I was going back into refi. So whenever I run into someone and that's the objection, we're already using a competitor, or we're already evaluating this, we're literally about to sign. Say, all right, quick question. Is there anything about your current provider that you wish they would do that they're not doing now, or anything you wish they would do better than they're doing now? So the reason why I say I don't remember the exacts, but if he had asked me that question, my answer would have been, I've been waiting for a month for this thing to get done. And I think that it's taking too long. And I think that did come across, but I think I offered it up without that qualifying question. I kind of guided him a bit on that. And he was like, and then from there, he was like, well, I can do this way faster than that. I was like, all right, cool. That's my problem. You've got a solution for it. And you cold called me. So I already admire the fact that you're putting that work in. Let's go. I'll at least give you a shot. I'm not going to commit until you tell me your rate, obviously. Let's go through that, but I'll give you a shot. And that's all that it took, man. And I think that that's the case with a lot of people. Is like, there's two different ways when people have a competitor. There's two different philosophies. One is you ask those questions because if the answer is no, I'm happy, you're clearing that lead out. You have so many leads in your ICP that it is not worth your time to navigate a potential contract. It's not worth it. So you're quickly qualifying and then you're respectfully getting off the phone because it's not worth your time. And if they give you something, then you can potentially close on it. Good to go. I think with other providers or companies, once you start to really scale, like for example, when Verizon Connect scaled to the point where we had like 60 or 70 SDRs in-house at a giant campus, and everyone's fighting over leads because everyone has every single lead that could possibly be in our ICP in their bucket. So when you ask for new leads, you're getting not new leads, you're getting retreads of old leads because everyone's talked to everyone at this point. Those ones, you're still going to ask that question, but it's not to respectfully get off the phone and qualify. You now need to navigate that a little bit better because you need to make time because there's only so many leads that are viable at this point because the company has scaled so much and you figured out your ICP so well and you have so many SDRs or AEs even that you have to go through it. And then you're going to have to ask more questions. You're going to have to do more of a discovery. You're going to have to be a lot more diligent with your follow-up. I'm in a contract, call me back in a year. You got to note that now. Before, you might have just tossed that aside. Now it's like, I'm going to have to call these in a year because I have a bunch that are like this and I'm still going to be here in a year. So I need to make sure that I make note of this stuff or I'm going to lose these leads. And that's, I think that's a big one though, man. You ask any SDR, what's the big objection you run into? A lot of the time it's we're using something else. And so you got to ask yourself one or two things there. Number one, is it worth the time? Based on the amount of leads that I have and my ability to convert on them when I connect with someone, that I should quickly qualify. And if they are happy with what they have, then, well, we're not in the business of breaking up any happy marriages. I wish you the best. Maybe we'll follow up down the road. And then you get off the phone respectfully. Or if it's like, nah, that's not the case here. We need all of them. If they have a chance of buying in the future, we need to preserve, we need to work with it more, then you got to do a deeper discovery. You have to ask those questions. You got to figure out which one you are. Where's your company at? Get with your sales leader. I would say is probably your best bet when it comes to that approach. But that question works well either way. Anything you wish they would do that they're not doing now, or anything you wish they do better than they're doing now. And then if they say, no, yeah, and then they have a problem, then the next question is, are you in a contract with what you're in now? And is that problem a big enough problem for you to be willing to break a contract early if we had a solution for it? And you run from there.
Right. And I know that there's probably somebody listening that's thinking, hey, Troy, that was a laydown, right? You were already shopping for it and this and that. But I'm fascinated by it because it really is a delicate balance, right? This person didn't cold call you and say, hey, that competitor stinks, right? We're the best at blah, blah, blah. We've been around since 1950, right? They went in and they were asking questions regarding curiosity, right? Are you curious about what type of rates we could get you? It wasn't sort of jamming down your throat. Do you think that, kind of opened you up a little bit more and made you a bit more open?
So I think they actually pitched. Like they're like, hey, like we're doing we're mortgage company, refinance and everything like that. That's another thing that I don't agree with. I think pitching works still. I think they'll play 40 questions. So for me, and I've been a sales director, I've been a VP of sales. Now I'm a founder and CEO of a sales training and recruiting company. You come over to me and you start asking me questions before you provided any value or given me any reason as to what your call is, that is more invasive. It's more rude. It's more likely for me to hang up on you than if you just pitched. It's this, I think that there is a little bit, not fully, but I think there's a little bit of this idea of like, hey, if you tell people to make a statement, like as like an influencer online and everything like that, a lot higher chance they're going to come back to you and say, I tried that and it didn't work. You ask a question, you're usually going to get an answer a lot of the time. So it's a lot safer play for people when they're giving advice to say, well, if you ran into that, ask this question. But then it's like, all right, cool. What do I do after they answer it? What do I, when comes the time? Dude, selling is still, you still sell the sizzle, and no one's ever sold sizzle by asking questions the whole time. You got to eventually present something. So to me, if you're, again, back to what we were talking before, if you're targeting the right area and you have some pretty fair assumptions as to the typical problems that somebody like me in my industry is running into, that it is fine for you to make that assumption and break into your pitch and see whether or not those problems are problems that would resonate with them. You know, hey, we're working with a bunch of other folks that are also in the same industry as you. We're helping them out with A, B, and C through A and B. You know, and it seems like everybody that I'm talking to is running into a similar problem in your industry. Am I off base? Or are you guys running into a problem with any of those things as well? And then maybe if your pitch is too long, when you ask that question, bring up the problems again. It seems like everyone I'm talking to in your industry is running into the same problem. Are you guys running into any issues with any of these things as well? 3 things as well? Bam, bam, bam. And then if they're like, yeah, all right, cool. You know, and that's where I'm different. Usually if someone says, yeah, then they'll go, all right, tell me a little bit more about that. Let's go into, let's break that down. If they tell me yes, that they have a problem that I can solve, I'm going for the close right then and there. Perfect. What I normally do is schedule a short online demonstration, get you a live look at how we can solve that for you. When's the best time for you to take a look at that? Would later today work for you? Or do you think tomorrow's going to be better for that? Now, they could object. And if they object, then I will qualify. But you gave me a reason to go for the close. And I'll tell you this, and no one has ever proven me wrong at this. Whoever asks for the meeting the most throughout the day wins as an SDR. And they may not be the best person at discovery. And I'm sorry, like it or not, I'll take an absolute savage over the best question asker every day of the week. Enough games. I've never seen a sales floor where that's not the case. Whoever asks for the meeting the most is generally the one that's winning the game. And here's the other thing about that. You get somebody to commit to that meeting quickly. That's when your job starts, if you're going to front load the close. You start asking those questions. How much more forthcoming you think somebody is when they've already set the meeting? How much better is that discovery? You're getting better information when you start asking those questions, because psychology of sales, put yourself in the shoes of the person you're talking to. I already committed to a meeting. Any answer that I give to any question that you've given me at this point, from here on out, is only going to add to the value of the meeting if I answer it effectively. So they're way more likely to give you better answers ahead of time. Again, you may not be able to close. In fact, more often than not, you're not going to be able to. You'd be shocked at that 10% where you can, and you do end up with a laydown if you do it effectively. And when you can't, even if they object, man, it feels like half the time it's just they're objecting that today and tomorrow won't work. So all you have to do is widen your appointment funnel. All right, perfect, no problem at all. When would be a better time next week? Would earlier in the week be better or later in the week? And then you just drill them down to a specific time. So you're already overcoming one objection before you've even done any kind of a discovery. I know this kind of like flies in the face of like a lot of the stuff that's out there right now. But I genuinely think the reality is get the right person on the phone, bring up things that you believe will resonate with them based on the research that you put in to their industry. And then if they give you any inclination that they might have interest, be assumptive and go for the close. You may not get it, but one of 2 things is going to happen. You're either going to get it, or you just got more practice going for the close. Because how many conversations do you have in the day where you're like, man, I had 5 convos today that were awesome. I talked to them, I uncovered pain, found out their problems. I think that we've got a shot with these. And then I asked that SDR, all right, well, how many of them did you actually ask for the meeting? And the answer's none, or 1 out of 5. And it's like, dude, you just stood in the batter's box and watched the pitches go by. You didn't even swing your bat. Going for the close on an appointment is a swing of the bat, period. If you don't do that, then you did not put yourself in a position to get that meeting whatsoever. So I would much rather have somebody be a little bit presumptuous than have a million great conversations that lead to nowhere. And I think that's the best strategy for new SDRs, is to get in the habit of being a closer. Ask for the meeting. They give you an objection, you overcome it, you go for the close again. Continue to go for the close. And you will get yourself in the habit of doing that. And then over time, you'll realize when it's organic in the conversation to do that. but I'd rather start with monsters that go for closes quickly than build them up later. That's kind of, it's not even kind of, that's the way that we do things at SalesOrg.io. It's the way that I train my reps. You know, we start off with your cold call opener, your positioning statement, and then you ask a question, then you go for the close if that question has a decent answer. Then you qualify. Then you try to overcome objections. I'd rather you try for the close faster.
You bring up a really good point here, because I'll even add one on top of that. Number one, if you ask for the meeting, you either get the meeting, or you, like you mentioned, have practice asking for the meeting, or maybe you unearth the objection that you were just going to get later on the actual meeting, right? So no matter what, you're getting yourself to the end goal. So I love that takeaway. Troy, why don't we dive into a B2B seller takeaway? I know you already have kind of been, introducing that already. What can a B2B seller, especially cold callers, take away listening to this?
To me, the most important part of cold calling is 100% calling the right people. It's more than anything. I used to do door-to-door sales where it would be like, all right, we're doing Verizon. We're selling FiOS. All right, everyone's a candidate. Go out there and knock. Everyone uses internet. All right, you could literally spray and pray and it would work for you. A lot of times, particularly in tech sales, but in pretty much any sale from a B2B perspective, that's probably not going to be the case. You're going to have to be a little bit more targeted. Like, for example, I used to get a zip code. I would sell FiOS. Well, let's say that only 10% could actually get FiOS. Well, man, I better find out where those 10% are. I better figure out the list of that, and I better only go after them, or 90% of my day I'm wasting my time. And then if I figure out that 10% and I only work those, as opposed to my peers that maybe didn't do that and figure out how to target, I'm 10 times more efficient now, because I'm only spending time with people that have a way higher chance of being able to get closed. And the only other thing I would say, man, is when it comes to cold calling, I go over this in my course as well. Like, the amount of activity that you do is important for a few different reasons. Like, a lot of people say don't sweat activity numbers, and I actually don't. Unless you're failing, then I'm going to sweat your activity numbers, because you better prove to me that you're at least trying. I think that's pretty fair to say. What I say is, when you do a lot of activity cold calling, if you're pointed in the right direction, what's going to happen is what I call compounding, like sales interest, basically, or compounding sales skills in your development. So very similar to the concept of compounding interest, where like you add the interest to the loan, and then you also are adding in the total of the newly added interest and the principal. So it compounds, and it's essentially exponential growth. Same thing when you're cold calling, if you're doing enough activity, because the first thing is you're going to get more sales just off of law of averages. If Steph Curry shoots 3 3-pointers and I shoot 100, I'm scoring more threes than Steph Curry. It don't matter how good he is. I can let my work ethic make up for my lack of skill and experience. So I can outwork if I'm pointed in the right direction. Now, if I'm shooting that basket into the crowd, I'm not going to score any. But if I'm shooting it at the basket, even if I'm not shooting great, I'm probably going to hit some. That's the first thing. If you're pointed in the right direction, you're going to get more sales just off of law of averages. The next thing is you're getting more practice. You're talking to more people than everybody else because your activity workload is higher. So your conversion rates will go up at the same time. So that's where the compounding starts. And that's where it becomes exponential growth, is that not only are you getting more deals in just off of pure workload and law of averages, but the conversion rates improve as you go. So every day, not only do you get more deals in, you're more efficient with how you get those deals in, because you're converting at a higher percentage just based on the practice that you're putting in. So it's point yourself in the right direction, and then believe that you're pointed in the right direction. And then from there, put the activity in. Call people during calling hours. Oh man, I close a lot of deals on email. All right, cool. How long is that taking you? Because I get on the phone with somebody that's the right prospect, I'm booking them that meeting. I'm booking them off of that call. How many emails back and forth until you've got that one qualified? And it's all going to end up in a phone call anyways. So what are we talking about? You're actually delaying, you're stunting your growth as a salesperson. Anyone can email. Anyone can email. Not everyone can navigate a call and sound decent on the phone. So when you're getting in front of a lot of sales leaders, they might ask you a little bit about your email practices and everything like that. But at the end of the day, if you sound like shit on the phone, it don't matter. It don't matter how good your email is. Or you can become a great SDR, because I've never seen anyone email a demo before. You're never going to be an AE. You can delay it, or you can rip the Band-Aid off and realize that sales is about talking to people and you can learn how to do it at a great level.
Love it, man. Hit the phones, people. You heard it here first. Troy, this has been amazing. Why don't you plug something with the audience on your way out? Know you're working on a bunch right now.
Yeah, so if you're considering a career in tech sales, you're not sure if it's what you want to do, or maybe if it's what you definitely want to do, go to salesorg.io. I have a free course. The purpose of that free course is to give you an idea whether or not this is something that you would really want to do. So it's going to go over the pros and the cons of tech sales, what you can expect, what is a sales development representative if you don't know what it is. At the end of that free course, you have the ability to schedule a 15-minute session with me, just a career coaching session. So if that course doesn't have you sold enough and you're still on the fence at the end of the free course, you can just schedule with me. Quick 15 minutes, we'll go over it. We'll get an idea whether or not you're somebody that it would make sense for based on what your career goals are, and we take it from there. But it can't hurt. It can never hurt to get more information. So yeah, log on there, and chances are we still got promo codes that are available, and you can get a discount on the free course.
Salesorg.io. Check it out. Get your session with Troy. Troy, this has been awesome. It is a wrap. We will see y'all next week.